Hey, what's happening, everybody? This is Michael Hastrider and the Board in the House channel here. So we are talking about the top 5 games people are wanting on Board Game Arena and just how great Board Game Arena is in general. And just I'm gonna at the very end go through all of these games of a Board Game Geek as far as I can go. I don't know how long I'll go for, just to say, hey, I like that one, or hey, I don't, because there's actually a Board Game Geek post out there where people are voting on the games that they want to be added to Board Game Arena. So this post came out a long time ago, at least by 2023, maybe even earlier than that, like 2022 or something, but people voted their top 5 games. I think this was before the Board Game Geek post. This was a forum comments in Board Game Arena. So people are saying, like, Dominant Species, and I actually searched Dominant Species to look up my top 5 games that I wish were on Board Game Arena. And it turns out, here's what I did. I was so meticulous, I even put the publishers for the games. So I said I like using BGA to play competitively with players who know the basic metagame. That was in 2022. So a long time ago. It was in 2022 when this was posted, or even earlier. But anyways, so my number one pick back then in 2022 was 5 Tribes. And now here we are in 2024, and I have my wish. Oh my goodness, I was so happy when that happened. You know, my favorite game is Terraforming Mars, and my second favorite game is Ghost Stories, the best cooperative game ever. And my third favorite is Seven Wonders Duel, of which I've made quite a bit of strategy guides and things on this channel for. But why did I not even put Terraforming Mars in my top 5? And why, as you see right down there, and also why did I not put Ghost Stories at the top? Why did I put 5 Tribes at the top? Well, there are some reasons for that I'm going to go over in just a second. But yeah, 5 Tribes, really great game. Days of Wonder, moving meeples around, and I'm definitely going to try to put more things on the channel for it. Just the problem is I can't do landscape mode with my phone with it, and so it's going to be difficult to do 5 Tribes content. But I'm going to try to make it happen, because I have been waiting for years to get this game in on Board Game Arena, and now here it is. So I always wanted like a competitive scene for it, and Between Two Cities, that is a game that I think would be really interesting to include. It's not cooperative, it's not competitive, it's a little bit of both. I mean, in the end, I guess it should be categorized as a competitive game, but you're working with the player to your left and your player to your right to make these cities that are between each of you to be better than all the other cities, and you score your lowest city. And so it's like you're working with the players, but you're not. And I just have always wondered how that would play on an internet type of situation, an internet environment of playing the game. And then Ghost Stories, of course, the best co-op game ever. And then Dominant Species. That is a game that, for this one, it takes a lot of setup, and it takes a long time to play. So speed of the game would be better done on Board Game Arena than actually in real life. Just like why I won't play Through the Ages in real life anymore, even though I love the game. I did an all-nighter with that game, and every time I played it, it was usually very long game sessions, and it hurt a chance to play any other games that might be better than Through the Ages. But Through the Ages is still a wonderful game. It's just very, very good to play on a forum like this, or the app. The app for Through the Ages is amazing. But I'll play Through the Ages with anybody on here on Board Game Arena. I think it's a fine implementation on here. There's better, but obviously the implementation that we have for like Seven Wonders Duel is really great, and Wingspan I think is a good implementation on here. But the app for Through the Ages, sometimes apps do beat out Board Game Arena, but generally Board Game Arena is usually the most streamlined way to play the game. And I'd say maybe I'm just used to Board Game Arena and how they do things, but I like the Wingspan Board Game Arena interface a whole lot better than the Wingspan app. So sometimes the app doesn't get it right. Or they try their best and they come up second place because Board Game Arena is just that good, and that may be what Wingspan's issue is. All right, and then we're looking at Alchemist. Alchemist would be a really cool one to put on Board Game Arena because you wouldn't need the app. Everybody has to download an app for the game, and now you don't need it. So all these 5 have different reasons for why I put it as the number 1, and the app one, I didn't even think of that until now. You don't have to use an app because you already are playing with an app, and so this in-game inherently in the code is set up. So I have here 10 reasons for why games would be good on Board Game Arena, and why I put them at the top. So Terraforming Mars, you can have a lot of fun in game or at a table. Set it up is not too bad for Terraforming Mars, my number 1 game. And then shuffling the cards, drafting the cards around the table if you play with drafting. All that is pretty doable in person. The only thing is it may be a little too long, and Board Game Arena could help with that one. So that's one of 10 things that I'm going to go over. Speed of play. But as far as setup, it's fine. And I made this list to jog my memory of anything that I might forget. So here's why Board Game Arena would be good for a board game rather than playing it in real life. So setup is nothing on Board Game Arena. It's already set up for you. If a game takes a lot of time to set up, then that's a good candidate for putting it on Board Game Arena. Next up, we have the rules are enforced by the code. So that's really cool that the code's going to make you follow the rules. If you're not sure about a rule, you don't have to go look up the rule. So that saves some time. But also, you might accidentally mess up on some edge cases, or even the edge case, and you don't bother looking it up in the rules because you know this is the right rule, and you go to make your move, and then you do some other combos in the game, and then you forget that you were supposed to do the edge case, like, oh, for this situation. And so you missed out on some points, like maybe 5 Tribes example, giving coins for each location that you land on to the player who owns one of the genies, Matos or whatever that genie is, that takes the coin, or gets coins given to them from the bank for placing meeples. That person's going to have to remember on every single person's turn to take coins from the bank, and maybe that's fun for them, but it's really cool that the rules will just do it automatically on Board Game Arena. So 5 Tribes takes a lot of time to set up. Setup's nothing now, and it's done perfectly randomly instead of just somebody reaching in and you have to trust that they're not going to drop 3 of the same color meeple on purpose, but it'll be fully randomly. That can actually happen, and it happens on Board Game Arena all the time. I just recorded a game where that happened, and I guess I underbid for that turn and lost both awesome actions. Okay, so the rules are enforced by code. Yeah, don't mind my misspellings. The third reason, replay access. So you can look at your replays and you can relive those situations, those highlight reels of, oh, I almost won, but then this was the one mistake that I did. I think that's so exciting. So Board Game Arena, if that's the type of thing that you want from a board game experience, the ability to go back to that experience over and over again and remind yourself of it, rather than just tell people, yeah, I had this one move where I was able to take 5 whole meeples from 5 Tribes, right? And then move them in a round circle and overlap on top of themselves and place out a camel and take over the whole board, and it was a crazy move. And so, and I'm using 5 Tribes as an example because I think 5 Tribes covers all 10 of these reasons for, check off all the boxes for that game needed to be on Board Game Arena. Okay, So, yeah, looking back at your replays, I love Seven Wonders Duel, and looking back at my replays for Seven Wonders Duel, I'm so glad that that got implemented on Board Game Arena, and I would have put that in my top 5 for my list, but at the time, Seven Wonders Duel had already been implemented. Next up, we have stats. So you can look up your stats of your how often you do certain actions. Like 5 Tribes, I was always wondering, is the assassin action just so powerful you just have to do it for pretty much every turn in the game? At least try to do an assassin action, or if you have 2 turns and you're 2-player, one of your 2 turns is going to be an assassin action. I was curious about how that might be, and a premium membership is not very expensive on Board Game Arena, so you can check out other people's stats and see, okay, maybe the best players don't do that. Maybe the best players go for green meeples. I wanted to figure out what the best moves were for this game that really is not very similar to any other game out there, in my opinion. And other games have copied that, that grab all the meeples and Mancala around. I guess Mancala is similar, but that's the mechanism. But the way 5 Tribes uses it is way different, and nobody's going to be looking up 5 different meeple type of actions you can do in the original Mancala board game. But 5 Tribes, yeah, you can look up those stats and see which meeple action is the best, which genie is the best. In Seven Wonders Duel, you can look up which win condition is the best. What's the best way for me to play with this expansion? And that's how I actually figured out that I needed to go science all the time for Pantheon. I did the maths, I did the statistics, and I was able to see this seems to be a common trend. You always go for science, and you just climb the leader rank, or you could climb the leader ranks with this, especially at over 50% of games being won with science in Pantheon expansion. I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to start playing from now on. Even though I really like the military route of winning, that's what I can learn from the statistics. Next up, leaderboard, which is different than statistics, but shares some similarities. You can look and see who the top players are, and you can try to be on the top players. And I thought that was very exciting. And initially, when I started this channel, I wanted to be the top player in like as many board games as I could, and I realized that I'm while I have that competitive spirit and hope, I didn't have the knack to do it, right? And not everybody can be the number 1 at every game. There's only one number 1 slot for each game, and it's very difficult to get that happening to you for multiple games, right? So I came in with these delusions of grandeur, and I ended up just doing okay in one of the games, Seven Wonders Duel, and I'm happy with where I'm at right there. I'm just barely hanging on in the top 100 right now. But that's exciting to me, to be able to say, I think I'm pretty good at 5 Tribes. Everybody I play in my family and my friend groups that I play with this, I do really well. And when 5 Tribes came out, there were a lot of people who bought it for the look and the beauty. The Days of Wonder does such a great job with all their games. 5 Tribes, Shadows over Camelot, that's a game that would be pretty cool on Board Game Arena. But yeah, like every game they do, Ticket to Ride, sure, like they're all really well done, beautiful. And what that does is, when a game is beautiful, is it drives people to want to get into it more often, right? They buy it not for the, hey, that game looks pretty strategic, I want to play a strategic game. They get into it thinking, that game looks pretty, I want to have fun, and I have fun with a pretty game. And so a lot of people were buying it at the time when I was first getting into board games. 2013 was when I really started getting into it big time, and then bought a bunch of games. And then by 2016, I had a whole wall of board games, and everybody, a lot of my friends would have their own shelfies. They'd have a shelf dedicated to their board games, and I had a whole wall of shelves. And my car was full of board games. My trunk was overflowing with board games. It was kind of insane. And so when I'd go to my friends' houses, I would see they also had purchased 5 Tribes, and they also enjoyed it. and it looked pretty to them. And a lot of the games they picked were just, hey, this game looks pretty. I want to take it and buy it. Takanoko, that game looked pretty. Everybody wanted the Panda game. Seven Wonders original looked pretty. Splendor, sure. Like gems, that was exciting to people. It's not just the prettiness aspect, but it's, when I say pretty, I'm like covering like beautiful components and things like that you don't get from Board Game Arena. You can't feel the pieces. That's kind of the one thing that Board Game Arena can't offer, is you can't shuffle the cards in your hands if you enjoy shuffling. I personally don't. I hate shuffling cards. And so that's more of a reason for me to have a drive to go towards Board Game Arena than to playing in real life. But as opposed to a video game, a board game is different. A board game is going to have, the here's your turn, here's what you do on your turn. Unless it's a real-time game, then we're getting into real video game territory and virtual reality. But anyways, I'm getting off track. This friends that I had, they would buy these games based on their prettiness, whether that is how the artwork, the colors, or the pieces felt good to feel. And I'd see Five Tribes on their shelves, and they'd be like, oh yeah, sure, let's play it. And sometimes they would feel like they were going to win, they'd played it with their families, and they're like, all right, I'll do well. And then I would play it with them, and then it was very exciting to have two players who were good at the game. But often that didn't happen, because only one of us was usually the better player, and it was usually myself, who when I would play the game, I would just do so much better than them. And then they would be like, yeah, I didn't really realize that this game had a lot of thinking in it. And they would be like, I'm not sure that I like it anymore, right? At least that happened one time. Another time, somebody thought they knew the rules, and they were playing it in a weird, like, worker placement, like pick up the meeples and just keep them. And I was like, what are you doing? You have to Mancala the meeples around, and then they would end a meeple, and they would pick up a meeple and put it somewhere else, and they would take all of them. And they're like, no, you actually have to Mancala them around. And they're like, what? Like, they move around? You don't just pick up one and then put it into another grouping? This game's going to take a long time. Yeah, it might. And so what would end up happening is you would see players, or I would play with people who would be like, all right, back up to here. The rules are enforced by the code. Five Tribes makes sure you have the rules correctly. And this goes with any game, but I'm using Five Tribes as the example. The setup was nothing. You can look at your replays, you can look at your stats, and you can see how good am I really. So these people, had some rules issues already of understanding the game, but even if they didn't have any rules issues, they would play the game and they'd say, I understood the rules, I just didn't think that the game had that much thinking to it. And now playing with you, I realized that the game has quite a lot of thinking to it, and now I'm going to not want to play this game anymore, right? Or that's unfortunate when that happens, but which happened one time. But yeah, I think it's very exciting to be able to play against a player who's better than you on Board Game Arena and be able to see, hey, what did they do that I could do differently so that I could be better? And that exploration of the game and that competitive drive is very exciting to look at. So the leaderboard, very great to have on Board Game Arena. The games are faster. So Five Tribes, for example, that game can take forever. I used to argue that it doesn't take very long, but that was because I would play with people who didn't really know what they were doing sometimes. And then when I did play with my family, who was pretty good at the game, then I started to notice that there was what people called AP, and there was a thread out there on Board Game Geek, or maybe it was a Dice Tower top 10 games that have AP, analysis paralysis, where you just sit and look at the board and don't know what you want to do. This was in the old Dice Tower Sam Healy days, and I remember Sam Healy, I think, saying that they thought Five Tribes had way too much analysis paralysis, and everybody else was silent. And then Tom went in, and then I think even Z Garcia went in. So all three of them agreed, and it was just on their list at different areas for the most AP inducing game. And I thought, yeah, all this staring at the board to decide what the best move is going to be is going to make the game take a long time. So Board Game Arena thankfully has a turn-based option where, hey, not only if you play in real time, your moves are going to go faster. You don't have to actually pick up pieces or shake the dice, roll the dice. You'd think that doesn't take much time, but actually it can take a lot of time. And you drop the dice on the floor, and then you know, maybe the dice is cocked a little bit differently, and then you're looking at it, and then you evaluate things. There's the math involved. All that is taken care of in Board Game Arena, and the games are much faster. But also, especially with 5 Tribes, this turn-based ability, the game is really meant to be giving you more time than just a sitting session to play against a better player. If you're both, or if you're significantly better than your opponent, you're going to play it very fast. But if you're both great players in chess, you're both going to play fast probably. I mean, I'm not a chess champion at all, but I would imagine when you, especially towards the end of the game with less pieces, you're going to be knowing what the best moves are, I would imagine, or best openings in the very beginning of the game. So my guess would be chess would be in the middle, or the middle end of the game would be the longest turns. But eventually you have less turns to move. I'm not going to stop talking about chess, but there are just certain games where there's points in the game that would take longer. And what's great about playing on Board Game Arena is you can set a game to turn-based from the beginning, and you can play your turns as much as you want. You can think about through the day. You can go to work, come back home, and then play a turn, and have thought, yeah, like, I wonder what I would do with these yellow meeples, because that seems like a good option for me right now, right? Okay, next up, so can the game be played, or the game can be played from anywhere with Wi-Fi. So Board Game Arena has that cool option to be able to just play from your phone rather than needing to have a table. That's expensive and space consuming. So we talked about like time consuming with the first two from this last half of the list, but also we've got space consuming. Yeah, that's really great and awesome with that. And also money wise, the game is virtually free. If you need to get a membership, sure, that's very cheap. So it's virtually free. I would say, like, you really don't. You've bought more expensive things than Board Game Arena memberships. I hope you have. But if it's worth it to you, yeah, they've kept the price cheap. They've found a way to do that for people. And if you get in earlier, they lock in your price. And so I still have the locked in price from back in 2016, I think, when I first joined. So if you want to get a membership, as long as you keep the credit card that you do it with, if you change your payment methods, then you don't get the locked in price. And so that's why I still have one of my old credit cards, is because I said, oh, okay, hold on, I need to keep this one, and anyways, so keep the price for Board Game Arena. So don't worry, I'm very frugal. Cost is not a like lost on me. Like, no matter how much money I'll make, I'm always going to be worried about how expensive something is, or how much output I'm taking from our bank account, right? So yeah, like I recognize that it's not free, but it's virtually free. And compare that to owning a bunch of board games. A lot of people who might look at this video in the future, maybe you own 20 board games, and if each one is $30, then that's gonna be like $600, right? So you don't want, would you rather spend $600 on board games, or would you rather spend $60 a year, or whatever it is right now? Anyway, so then the storage of games. So last one I'll go over is the you buy this game, and then now where do you store it? So it's not just the space that you need to have to play it, the table space, the home, or maybe you go to McDonald's and pay for a table there, but you've got limited resources in your life, and you have your money, you have your time, and then you have your space, and not just your table space, but also your storage of the game. Where are you going to store these games? Are you going to have a giant wall in your house like I have, and or are you gonna try to reduce it and be able to live with less and have more space for other better things, honestly? So board games are great, but if you have Board Game Arena, then you can afford to use that space for something else. You can still have the great games, but also have the space, and I love that. So yeah, your time, your space, and your money, all solved with Board Game Arena. And so you can still have all three of those things and keep this crazy hobby that hurts all three of those. Okay, so next up, this is kind of, these last 5 are for publishers who are thinking about putting a board game out there on Board Game Arena. What's great about that is that these 5 are, you can categorize board games like as random or not random. So say I put a board game on there, I put 5 Tribes up there onto Board Game Arena, and I say, okay, is this game random, or is it pretty non-random? Like, who usually wins this game? The better player, or just a nobody, right? Like, who actually is the winner? Or is there's somebody out there who just consistently wins the game? Then that's a key that person knows what they're doing, and the game's not random. It's actually more strategic, and that they're able to do things in the game to cause the game to end in their victory. That, my friends, is we go up to that leaderboard. That's that ELO, right? In both your arena ELO and your all-time ELO, you can look at and see what your max ELO is for a game, and players who consistently win are going to have a higher ELO. And so if they've figured out something that the rest of the player base hasn't figured out, and that's the case with thing A that they figured out, and then all the way to thing Z that they figured out that nobody else has figured out, they have A through Z, 26 different ways that they can win the game. And then even if the game's a little random and it doesn't produce you know, A through X, well, you still have Y and Z to be able to win the game with, or to produce an advantage for yourself. So the game can still be random, but strategic. How random is your game? You can just look at the top leaderboard for Board Game Arena. But if you are just playtesting the game, then you have to keep all that data yourself in your own publisher notebook, right? You can find broken strategies. Maybe there's just one card that always helps people win in the game. Maybe Seven Wonders Duel, the Tavern. If you take the Tavern, you're going to win. In 5 Tribes, I thought that there was a broken strategy. So another reason why I was like, hey, 5 Tribes should be the #1 game that needs to be on Board Game Arena. I was always wondering, is there a broken strategy with the red meeples? And I think I'm probably wrong there. Yeah, you think you're good, you think you're the big fish in your friend group of playing the game, and then you go to Board Game Arena and you see, hundreds of players, you play with everybody, and you realize, okay, I'm not the big fish, I'm kind of a medium fish, right? So you can, and the big strategy that you thought would win all the time, I talked through your advantages that you have over the player base A through Z, and you have that advantage Z, and you think, oh, Z is great, red meeples, just use those. Somebody else can say, I can use those red meeples just like you can, but if you use red meeples, that makes option X, better, right? And so they do some other strategy, the green meeples or something like that, to cause themselves to win. And yeah, so is it a broken strategy to just use red meeples and place down your camels, and when you're out of camels, just end the game? well, you might end the game not on your terms and not on you winning. Somebody plays the green meeples, they may be able to beat you. So disproven broken strategies. Yeah, that was the next thing, and I basically said it there. You play out some green meeples and you realize, oh, the broken strategy in my friend group is not actually broken universally. Next up, playtest expansions and variants. So people can, on Board Game Arena, they can test out different expansions to board games, and maybe like Feast for Odin may have an expansion out there that they want to add to Board Game Arena, and they can play test it. But maybe they have another expansion out there that they put out. It's like Feast for Odin expansion 3 or 4, and players play it and they say, oh, okay, this was fun, or this was not fun, and you can figure out if it's got a broken strategy. You can figure out if it's fun for people, and you can say, all right, should we even publish this extra rule variant, or this, Lewis and Clark came out with an extra rule variant of how to play Lewis and Clark, and that's the only other game I think I'm in a top 100 for is Lewis and Clark, and yeah, that one was very fun to climb the leaderboards with. I made a whole separate YouTube channel. I think it's Game Cadet. I made Game Cadet, the board game channel, and I was playing Lewis and Clark on that a lot. And that one, I really thought there was a really cool thing that if your meeple landed on somebody else's meeple, that you'd move a space forward in Lewis and Clark. However, pros would use that to their advantage, and when 2 pros knew about that, neither one would advance to the mountains because they knew that somebody else would hit the mountain space and then go the river space and go 1 space forward and get a free mountain space in Lewis and Clark. And those are very hard to earn, mountain spaces. You're traveling up rivers and mountains to get to the end of the game, and it's a racing game, right? So they made a variant on Board Game Arena that fixes that issue, where if you land on somebody else's space, I think you go back a space, but you gain a bonus day or something like that. But they've tried to create a variant to fix an issue that people thought was in the game. So next up, easier to introduce to people and tutorials to teach to play. So yeah, Seven Wonders Duel has a tutorial online now on Board Game Arena that you can use and play, and I think that's pretty useful. You can also just YOLO play, don't use a tutorial, just grab random cards or pick up random meeples and do whatever, and click random buttons until the page says end turn ? And you can say, yep, I'll end my turn. And then you can watch what other players do as you're YOLO playing. You'll probably lose, but you'll learn the game pretty quickly, and that's so much easier to introduce to people. Think about it in real life. If you've got a table sitting there with a bunch of pieces and you don't know what is possible in the game, no button comes up to say, do you want to pick up, these meeples? Like no glowing icon says this is allowed to be clicked on. You're just looking at a table of meeples on a board and you're thinking, what do I do in this game? I really wish that I had paid attention when they were trying to teach me the game, but I suffer from listening to somebody drone on about rules, and I don't even really enjoy being at this guy's house, or I don't even really enjoy feeling intimidated by not knowing the rules of this game. You're in the comfort of your own home and you're pressing random buttons, and some people do not want to do the YOLO play because that scares them, but yeah, that's how I've learned a lot of games on Board Game Arena, and yeah, that's how I learned It's a Wonderful World. I just clicked random buttons. You can pick a card. Okay, I'll pick a card. And then I got to learn the rules really quickly. Some games tend to be really easy to learn the rules with YOLO play. I went for the longest time thinking that the points were a different way than they actually were, though. But if you pay attention as you YOLO play, you can figure it out, just like I ended up finally figuring out It's a Wonderful World. All right, so, and then the next one, obviously, like advertising. Like, you use Board Game Arena and you can advertise your game. And that's why I bought Applejack, actually. I played it on Board Game Arena, I loved it, and I said, okay, I'm going to buy this, even though it's $40. So you you can put a game on Board Game Arena, and it actually pays off in the end. People want to buy the game anyways. I wanted to see what the game would be like in person and how that would feel in person. So whilst I'll leave this video with this, some games are not going to be the best on Board Game Arena, but a lot of them have potential in either one of these 5 ways for publishers to use, or one of these 10 ways for players to feel that their time, their space, and their money is more respected with Board Game Arena. And that is just such a wonderful thing about Board Game Arena that I love. I promised, in the beginning of this video that I would go through this Board Game Geek thing, but we are out of time. It's been going on for 35 minutes, so this is the thread. I'll show it to you at the end here. Proposed Board Game Arena games, and don't forget to give a thumb to the list itself. Okay, I gave a thumb to the list itself, and it starts from 1 to, numbers to letters, A to Z after that, saying what games are good. So 10 Days in Africa, I played 10 Days in Asia, great game. I want that one to be on there. I haven't played any of these. Let's see. 13 Days, very good game. I would like that one to be on Board Game Arena. If anything, to see, this is another reason why I want Between Two Cities on Board Game Arena, is it's not strictly competitive. 13 Days, you can both lose the game. I guess that still makes it competitive, but most competitive games are going to fall under the category of you win or you lose. And then if you lose, your opponent wins. In 13 Days, this 2-player, you could both cause a nuclear war, or one of you causes a nuclear war and you both lose, so you don't want to have that happen. You could cause your opponent to be forced to start nuclear war, and I think that counts as a loss for both of you in those rules. So there's that. And then is there anything? Okay, so I'll put my face a little smaller here. Australia, okay. Yeah, so this would have been a little bit boring potentially. I would have just gone through these different games and been able to tell you which ones I want. Hey, I thumbed that one, 1960 Making a President. I think that would be cool to be on it. Would I play it a lot? Not as much as my top 5 that I want on Board Game Arena to be implemented on Board Game Arena, but 5 Tribes is now implemented. So next up, bring a cooperative game, Dominant Species, or sorry, Ghost Stories, or bring a game that normally takes a ton of time, a whole evening to play, and just do Dominant Species in speed rounds online. I wonder, 5-Minute Dungeon, how they would implement real-time stuff, because that is a real-time game, but I think that would be pretty interesting to do. 504, there's 504 different ways to play that game. None of them are good. So much so I've heard, but I think it'd be cool to find some good ones, and with an online forum, that would be really cool to be able to do. 7 Ronin. This game, I think, has a broken strategy that always wins, and I want to see if that's actually true. I think the Ronin player has a very low chance of winning, but some people say that there's complaints on both sides, and their experience, the ninjas mostly lose, but that's not true. I think the ninjas have overwhelming chance of winning in that one. So some of these asymmetric 2-player games like Raptor or 7 Ronin, I'm very skeptical of them because I feel like one player is gonna win more often, and I'd rather a game start with equal playing fields, and then as the game plays on, you both become different, and one of you goes for science, and one of you goes for military, and one of you has the resources more equipped for science, one of you has the resources more equipped for military, but you chose that rather than just starting out, and you're the Raptors and they're the scientists. 7 Wonders Duel. Yep, that one's on there already. Yep, we are still in the numbers, I think, and there's going to be a lot of 7s. Yep, Seven Wonders Dual Leaders. Why are there no why are there no Seven Wonders regular game expansions? I would play it more often. Alright, and so here we're at the A's. Yeah, Abomination would have been good. Would be good to put on Board Game Arena, I think. Hey, Above and Below, that would be good to put on there. There's like stories in there. We need to add like a story-driven game onto Board Game Arena. I think Tales of Arabian Nights. Ooh, that would be fun to be on Board Game Arena. Anyhow, yeah. You get it. This is what I was planning on going through. You can do this on your own time and look for different games that you would like to, you would think would be good on Board Game Arena. And the more upvotes, the more likely they will be implemented. I know Terraforming Mars was the #1 for a long time that people wanted to be implemented. And maybe that's why I didn't put Terraforming Mars as my #1, or even in my top 5, because I wanted it to be different. But now it's already out. I posted my top 5 in 2022, and Terraforming Mars came out in 2023 December, I think, when it got onto alpha. So yeah, if you vote, then your voice will be heard. And I'll leave it with that. Thank you so much for watching this long video, and take care.